Kenyan President William Ruto has cancelled two projects with the Adani Group valued around $2.6 billion over alleged corruption. This comes just hours after the billionaire founder of the Adani Group was accused by US authorities in a separate bribery scam. Kenya's largest airport and high-voltage electricity transmission lines were to be managed by companies owned by Gautam Adani, but Ruto reportedly demanded his ministers immediately cancel the ongoing procurement process with the Indian group firms. Ruto told lawmakers in a State of the Nation address in the capital, I'm quoting, "I have stated in the past and I reiterate today that in the face of undisputed evidence or credible information on corruption, I will not hesitate to take decisive action," quote unquote. He said the decision was based on new information provided by investigative agencies and partner nations.
I have directed agencies within the Ministry of Transport and the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum to immediately cancel the ongoing procurement process for JKI expansion public-private partnership transaction, as well as the recently concluded Ketrago transmission in public and immediately commence the process of onboarding alternative partners, because these are important projects.
Earlier, a subsidiary of the conglomerate Adani Group won a $736 million contract to build and run electricity lines in the East African country. And earlier this year, Adani Airport Holdings obtained a concession worth $1.85 billion reportedly to operate Nairobi's main airport for 30 years. Despite Ruto's prior endorsement of the transmission deal, public criticism of his government's opaque contract awarding surfaced. According to Kenyan MP John Kaguchia, the president was forced to back out of the deals following the US prosecution of Adani. WION is yet to receive a response for comment from the Adani Group. On Wednesday, US federal prosecutors said that Gautam Adani and others conspired to solicit funding from US investors while secretly planning to pay millions of dollars in bribes to Indian government officials in exchange for solar energy contracts. If there are ties to American investors or markets, federal prosecutors in the US can pursue corruption charges abroad. However, the Adani Group denied those charges. The group spokesperson said the allegations were baseless and that the conglomerate will take legal course of action. The serious bribery charges caused the stocks of Adani Group firms to crash and wipe out about $30 billion in value. Gautam Adani's personal financial gains for the year were wiped out as well. The wealth of the second wealthiest Asian billionaire fell by as much as $15 billion on Thursday. At market close, his fortune was around $72 billion. That is down from $84.3 billion at the end of 2023 and a peak of $122 billion on June 3rd. The US charge is the latest twist in the almost 2-year roller coaster ride. The businessman has had a rough ride since January 2023 when Hindenburg Research published a scathing report. The US short seller accused him of fraud and corporate governance flaws. The latest indictment threatens to throw the Adani Group into turmoil. The group has been the subject of an ongoing inquiry by India's securities regulator, which started last year. The SEBI issued show-cause notices to 4 Adani firms in the September quarter, and the group's response is awaited. Along with the US bribery charge indictment order, court documents of an arrest warrant against Gautam Adani were unsealed to disclose them to international law enforcement authorities. An indictment marks the start of legal proceedings and not a declaration of guilt. Following the billionaire industrialist's indictment on allegations of fraud and bribery, a warrant for his arrest was unsealed last month in a New York court. The court document states Judge Robert Levy ordered its unsealing on October 31, 2024. Foreign law enforcement authorities were given access to the unsealed indictment and arrest warrant. The United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York filed a motion to have the warrant unsealed. So, what is an indictment? An indictment basically marks the start of legal proceedings and not a declaration of guilt. A grand jury formally charges someone with a crime by issuing an indictment. This does not prove guilt, but it shows sufficient evidence exists to press charges. A grand jury heard the prosecution's case and reached a verdict that warranted the filing of charges against Gautam Adani for several violations of US federal law. The indictment contains crucial legal aspects such as the specific offences against Adani are laid forth in the detailed charges, summaries of the evidence that supports the charges, what US laws were allegedly broken. Following the filing of an indictment, the prosecutor requests that the court issue an arrest warrant. Arrest warrants are not issued by US courts unless there is a belief that the accused would willingly show up in court. Instead of a warrant, the court may send summons to the defendant if they are considered cooperative. The court may opt to issue summons instead of a warrant if it determines that Adani is complying or is not likely to escape. Adani's legal team could try to get this option negotiated. The accused's whereabouts determine the arrest procedure. Things get trickier when the defendant is outside of the US. The US authorities then have two options basically. Either they utilize diplomatic channels to commence extradition proceedings, which would need assistance from the Indian government under the US-India extradition treaty, or they could request an Interpol red notice, which would notify the law enforcement globally. To avoid any potential leaks, it is common practice to first seal indictments involving foreign persons like Adani. The United States' ability to prosecute Adani hinges on his extradition. US courts can only hear cases involving crimes committed within the country or against US residents. Both the United States and India must recognize the alleged crime as illegal for extradition to proceed. Beyond that, the United States needs to provide the Indian government with enough proof. And after that, the Indian government would look at the request through the lens of Indian law and the treaty's provisions. And finally, Indian courts may be asked to hold hearings to determine if the evidence warrants extradition. Following his arrest or voluntary appearance, Adani would be then taken through the official court procedure of arraignment, during which the accusations against him are read out, and he is asked to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. At trial, if the case goes forward, the prosecution will have the burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. For example, if the accusations are political, there are human rights concerns, or there isn't enough proof, extradition might be prohibited. In response to the indictment and media reports on the charges, Adani Group denied the allegations and called them baseless in a mandatory stock exchange filing. The statement also said, I'm quoting, "There are no allegations made against the company." To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.